Hey, it's Nate with Pulse PMF and the Pulsecast live at the 2025 Biohacking Conference in Austin, Texas. Got another amazing conversation coming with Dr. Guerry, founder of Third Rock Essentials. Dr. Guerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
And
Yeah.
so, with your origin story of Third
Yes.
Rock Essentials, can you
Yes.
give us a 60-second version so we can have plenty of time to talk about the products themselves?
I can.
All right.
I can. So I like to surf. In fact, I was just in San Diego trying to surf. I'm getting older now. And when the water, I love being in the water. I had two 20-year-old guys, different times, different doctors, both diagnosed with melanoma. Both told the same thing about different dermatologists, and that is keep surfing and you'll get it again. So they quit at age 20. And I said, wow, that's not good. The same time that happened, Margaret Schlumpf, toxicologist, University of Zurich in Switzerland, found out that all of the active sunscreens were endocrine disruptors, female mimicking hormones. And I then filed a patent because I do patent work for a living. I filed a patent on a non-endocrine disrupting cytoprotective immunoenhancing sunscreen. And
Wow.
my 14-year-old daughter at the time, I needed a name for the sunscreen. And I was thinking around, we use earth grown ingredients only and the third rock. So third rock from the sun.
Yep, that makes
And
sense.
that's asked Stephanie at the time. I said, we need a name for the sunscreen. I said, what about third rock sunblock? You'd have to know my daughter, but she said, well, dad, it rhymes. So, that was from her, that was a positive signal,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And so that's how Third Rock Sunblock was born. And Third Rock Sunblock Incorporated exists, and Third Rock Essentials is doing business for Third Rock Sunblock Incorporated. So Third
So
Rock Essentials has grown out of that whole passion to develop the best sunscreen on the planet.
I love that name.
Thank you.
I know
Thank
my
you.
vote's late, but
No, no, no.
it's great.
Actually, your vote's good because a lot of people hated the name.
What?
Yes.
Why?
Yes. I don't know. I had well, the godfather for my kids, one of my best friends, probably my best friend. He said, I think we should call it solar cream. And so we started selling it as solar cream for his dive industry folks. And they were like, solar cream? It sounded like Brill cream, a little
Right.
dabble to you. Now, I will say a little dabble of our sunscreen will do you. But I didn't think that was as good a name as Third Rock Sunblock.
Okay.
Now, what turns out, the FDA sort of put a little damper on it too. The FDA does not allow you to call it sunblock anymore. So we have to call it Third Rock Sunblock Sunscreen Lotion. So the,
Wow.
the FDA in 2011 said sunblock is a misnomer. You should call it sunscreen only.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Man.
Yeah. Thanks to
You,
the
you think
government.
they have better battles to fight?
Yeah. Yes.
So now you've developed more than just sunblock, sunscreen.
I
What?
have. I have. So what happened was most of them were mistakes in the lab.
Oh,
So, I like I said, I do patent work and I do product development. So turns out one day we were getting ready to make a batch of sunscreen. We only make about 1,800 units at a time. I call it artisanal sunscreen.
and
And
rightly so.
yeah, it is. It's very, again, we make everything in the United States. I personally am involved in every aspect of making every product, which is
Wow.
good and bad. It just means we're small and we need to grow. But what happened was one day we were prepping in the lab and we came up with this alternative to uh, getting the product prepped, and we had acetyl glucoside, which is a plant fat. So we said food grade edible only. So if you've ever boiled vegetables, for example, and seen globules come to the surface, that's plant fat. So if you take that plant fat and you add it to glycerin and you add too much of the plant fat, it'll turn into a solid gel. Well, the guy that was working with me in Richmond, Virginia at the time said, well, I'm just going to throw that away. I said, wait, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. I want to know, how did this happen? He said, well, I prepped, but maybe I added too much glucoside. Well, it turns out it looked just like petroleum jelly. So we make
Really?
something called Neutrolium
Oh,
jelly,
I
and
like
that was
that.
patented. It was a mistake in the lab. So it was an alternative to petroleum jelly.
In the words of Bob Ross, there's no mistakes, just happy accidents.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, he's right.
He's
He's
right.
right. So, well, it wasn't a happy accident that day, but turned out to lead to a whole bunch of other products. So
All
it's a
right.
base for a lot of products we make. So you can take that two component product, which is glycerin and glucoside, and I've never found a combination that gels that way. You can add other things to glycerin, but you can't make that gel. And if you add beeswax to it, it becomes water resistant, which petroleum jelly is. So I make a water-resistant petroleum jelly alternative, and I make a water-soluble petroleum jelly alternative.
With no plastics,
No
and
plastics,
it's
every
just
food
all
grade edible,
natural.
all natural.
So do you
Right?
have a
Uh,
chemistry
I'm a
background?
chemist undergrad and a
Okay.
mechanical engineer, double major, double degree, whatever, and then master in chemical engineering and a PhD in chemical engineering.
Hence
So
the doctor.
hence the doctor, but it's not a medical doctor, not a nutritional therapist doctor, not an ND. I am just a PhD in
Okay.
chemical engineering.
So tell us some more about some of these other products.
So what happened with the Neutrolium product is we make a Neutrolium water resistant and water soluble, as I mentioned.
Hmm.
I also developed it with the same guy with making chelated silver oxide. So a lot of people have heard of colloidal silver.
Yep.
There's a lot of products on the market that are colloidal. We don't make colloidal silver. We make chelated silver oxide. So we make it with citric acid. So
Okay.
what happens is with colloidal silver, you have two electrodes in a bathtub. Basically, you use distilled or deionized water. You put electricity current through the two. The silver comes off the electrode, goes into the bath, and that's how you make colloidal silver. Those are silver ions, usually positively charged silver ions in water, and they work. I mean, 10 parts per million already gives you some benefit.
Absolutely.
We use chelated silver oxide, which is bonded with citric acid. So it's an inorganic organic molecule. And we're organic beings. We're carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and we're 80+% water. So why is our stuff different? Not necessarily better, but different is because the citric acid is food for all living cells. So we take that chelated silver oxide and we make something which is 4,000 parts per million. This is a silver excelsior. We
Wow.
mix it with glycerin. The goal was to infuse this into mouthpieces and mouth guards to make it antimicrobial, antibacterial. We did that, but nobody seemed to care. Well,
Huh.
some other folks came to me and said, "Can we sell the concentrate?" I said, "You want to sell 4,000 part per million silver?" They said, "Yes." They can take it and they can dilute it themselves. So this has really become a hit. Um, we dilute it down to 150 parts per million to make a silver spray. We also
Nice.
make an 16-ounce version where you can refill this and drink it yourself that way. It
Wow.
gets turns even better. So we take the silver and we infuse it into something called Nutrisporin, not Neosporin, but
Oh, I
Nutrisporin.
like that.
Okay, so that's
I
another
like where
thing.
this is going.
Okay, so again, the same gel, the same Neutrolium jelly,
Yep.
water resistant and water soluble, but now we infuse the silver into it. And what happens is instead of Neosporin, which is a triple biotic gel, right, which has been around forever,
Yep.
1992, Johnson Johnson bought it from Warner Lambert. Okay, so it's been around at least 40, 50 years. Well, it's off patent. The trademark still exists, of course, and Johnson Johnson makes a lot of money on Neosporin, but it doesn't really work that well because it allows other strains of bacteria to proliferate. With chelated silver oxide, our stuff, we haven't found anything that it doesn't wipe out. Infectious bacteria, mold, mildew, and fungus. So it wipes
Wow.
all of those out. So we infuse that into the gel. We call it Nutrisporin, right? Instead of Neosporin, we trademarked it, we patented it, and because that's my field of intellectual property, I got to make sure that I do things right and I do them carefully.
Yes.
And so that's how we did it. I had a woman call me 7 years ago from Bremerton, Washington, of all places. Didn't even know where it was. It's
Mhm.
west of Seattle.
Okay.
She said, I run two nursing care facilities. I'm a licensed practical nurse. She says, I'm using this stuff and it's wiping out my urinary tract infection, my UTI. I said, wow. She goes, I want to try it on my residents, the people in my residence. So I didn't know anything about urinary tract infection to speak of. I didn't design it for that. I
Right.
designed it to be an alternative to Neosporin. But they said, okay, let's do a study. They had 12 women, all of them incontinent, all of them older, all of them having urinary tract infection issues. What normally they do is they give them antibiotics. What happens with the antibiotics is that it wipes out certain strains of bacteria, but doesn't
Right.
kill others.
Exactly.
And in fact, with Neosporin, it doesn't kill MRSA, which is really bad because Muhammad Ali died of MRSA in Louisville Hospital, but nobody says that because the hospital loses its funding. Anyway, getting back to the nursing care facility,
Yeah.
what happened? We did the trial. They had one woman there of the 12. She was on hospice. She was getting urinary tract infection every week. She was getting antibiotics every week. Luckily, she had a Seventh-day Adventist doctor who didn't believe in antibiotics and wanted to try something else. So they applied this directly to the urethra 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. She lived 9 more months on the hospice. She never got another urinary tract infection.
Wow.
So it's life-changing product. And
Absolutely.
I'm like, well, okay, what do we do now? So I tried to go to the national healthcare administration folks and go to a show like this and show my stuff off. And they're all there to have a good time, drink, play golf. And the nurses are on vacation in San Diego. We did the San Diego National Convention. I couldn't get it, McKesson, for example, they wouldn't pick it up because they didn't have enough data.
Mhm.
So we're still trying to get the word out on that. There's amazing amount of women that have urinary tract infections. In fact, at the same show that I was at with Paul, I think it was 2021, maybe the second show I was at with Paul. A woman came to me. She was from Oregon, 26-year-old woman, beautiful girl. She had flown from Oregon to Orlando to go to Dave Osprey's show. And I said, wow, I didn't know who she was. I had just done an interview like we're doing one, except I was standing behind my booth and had two women interview me about the Nutrisporin, and I knew that it was curing UTI. Of course, saying that, you got to be careful because the
Of
FDA
course.
will put, right? So
Yes.
you can't really say it cures anything, right? But
Right.
anyway, so this woman comes up the booth. She was in the elevator with the women, had just interviewed me. Like literally, things happen for a reason, right?
Yes.
Literally had just interviewed me. And she was going upstairs and they wanted to interview her like you are me about how's the show going for you? How's the show going? She said, I don't want to talk. I'm going upstairs. I was in the emergency room last night. I have a blooming UTI. So they said, well, you better go see Guerry. So she runs over to my booth, literally crying. And she says to me, I need to talk to you right now. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was talking to other people at the booth, but I really need you right now. She said, what do I do? I said, well, you drink this, which is the silver oxide, the chelated silver oxide. Of course, I gave her she bought a 16-ounce bottle and she bought the Nutrisporin, which unfortunately I didn't bring to show, but it looks a lot like Neosporin in a tube. She brought it upstairs. I told her what to do. I said, drink the whole bottle, apply it directly to the urethra. And I have pictures of her 10 o'clock the next morning. I think I'll look at my phone here somewhere. At 10 o'clock the next morning, she came upstairs um, and she said, it works. I'm cured.
Yes.
I'm cured. I'm cured.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
So how many of your products were happy accidents?
Probably in a way, all of them.
Okay.
So I also
That's
chelate zinc oxide.
all
I
right.
chelate with citric acid. I chelate D3K2 because I started taking vitamin D and realized it's a hormone. I
Yeah,
surely shouldn't overdose. And so I made my own D3K2. So vitamin D with K is the way it gets delivered.
absolutely.
And so I had to buy both and
Yep.
figure out could I chelate it with citric acid to make it immediately effective. So I do, and I sell that. This is my D3K2. I call it liquid sunshine.
I
And this
love
is
that.
my liquid zinc oxide chelate with citric acid. So
Wow.
both of these are bioactive and bioavailable products, way better than taking capsules because that has to go through your digestive tract. This goes right into the blood, into the saliva as immediately as you put it in your mouth.
As a chemist and an
Uh-huh.
inventor, I imagine you've got other things that you're dreaming up
I
right now.
yeah, I
Is there
do.
anything that obviously there's some proprietary
Of
information,
course.
but is there anything that you can share to give us a little peek behind the curtain?
Yeah, I think so. I just met on my trip to San Diego last week. I just met the guy who is the direct developer and a retired pathologist, and he makes a something called Patch for All. And what
Wow.
he does is he infuses into little patches, which are amazing. He infuses supplements, and instead of it going through the gut, you can wear it anywhere, so that essentially a intravenous approach without getting
It's just
injected. It's
transdermal.
just transdermal. And so I'm really interested in doing some transdermal stuff
All
with the
right.
silver, with other things, and just see where that goes. Because I know transdermal approaches uh, usually are more effective, more rapidly effective. And if it bypasses the gut, it could be much more beneficial. That's not true with everything,
For
but
sure.
it's true for some things.
Right.
So yeah, that's sort of the area I'm interested in right now.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
it is.
Now, how can our viewers find out more about Third Rock Essentials
Sure.
and be aware of the cutting edge breakthroughs that you're developing right now? Because this is really unique to this space and
It
to this
is.
movement.
It is. So it's www.thirdrock. So it's the number three RD, rock, ROCK, essentials.com. So it's thirdrockessentials.com. And you can find us on the web. You can find us on Amazon. If you buy from Amazon, they'll take 65% of our gross. If you buy from us, you'll get a better
So
deal.
go through the website.
Go to the
We
website.
want to
Exactly.
support.
Exactly. Exactly. We're a small business and we want to stay with low prices and low overhead. and we have very low prices and very low overhead, but very high expenses.
Dr. Guerry,
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time
you're
and
welcome.
for bringing this to this
Yeah,
space.
yeah,
We need the bold thinkers
right,
with the big ideas right now
right.
because there's never been a better time, right?
Yes,
In our generation, especially,
yes,
there's a generation that's hungry for the new and the
absolutely,
new that is authentic and valid,
right,
even if it's being discovered by a happy accident.
right.
We want that which is actually bioavailable without the toxicity, and
That's what we're all about.
you're providing that.
That's what we're all about.
And I definitely want to check out some of that sunblock, sunscreen, or whatever the
Yeah.
FDA told you to call it.
Exactly.
Dr. Guerry, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for your
Nate.
time. We
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thank Paul and thank your team and appreciate everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we thank you for watching. Stay connected with the Pulsecast as we're giving you a front row seat to the biohacking revolution. We'll see you in the next conversation.